Hey YouTube, do-it-yourself junkie 369, and today is day 117 of our RV-10 build. Still working on the tail cone. Just a few more rivets to do on the top aft skin. Need to rivet in these bell crank ribs, and other than that we're almost done with section 10 of this. And while we're waiting on the wings to show up, I'll probably go ahead and start doing the final assembly and sticking the fairings on the elevators and rudder, and maybe also install my tail light. I also have the static ports that I can go ahead and install as well, so I'll probably do that before finishing out this section. Okay, for my static system, I just picked up the Van's static kit. In this kit, it uses 2 rivets to form the static port in the side of the skin. So you drill a hole appropriate for this rivet, and then you stick it in there, pull it, the stem snaps off, and then I think you either punch out what's left of the stem or you drill it out. I'm sure it tells me in the instructions. People like getting nicer port than just a rivet for the side of their plane. So a lot of them get aftermarket stuff from like Spruce Aircraft and such. And a lot of people have trouble calibrating their static system, and they do that. And I think part of it is a lot of them are going with like a flush port, and the airflow doesn't flow over it correctly. Either that or they might be sticking it in a different location as well. But I'm assuming most of it has to do with airflow, because like the puck style Cessna ones seem to work great without any sort of calibration issues. The rivet ones seem to work great without any calibration issues. So for a nicer port, Vans now sells these aluminum ones that are machined aluminum, and the head sort of simulates the rivet, but it's just nicer looking in my mind. So I plan on using that, and it goes in there and attaches with a block washer and a nut that gets torqued no more than 25 inch-pounds. And it's probably worth putting some sort of Loctite on it as well. It comes with instructions, only for use on experimental aircraft, obviously. does not carry FAA certification. Installation location is determined by aircraft manufacturer, and you should follow that. When suitable location has been determined, drill a 1/4 inch hole. I'm going to use the stock locations that are already pre-punched. One of them on each side back here, about halfway back on the tail. And the step for this is page 14, step 3. And I had skipped it weeks ago, probably months ago, because I knew I was going to go some sort of aftermarket route and not do the rivets. I guess because it has a lock washer, it doesn't really need any Loctite, so we'll skip that. And then you just install it. So I'm going to be doing that step now, since I can do that without having anybody helping me. And of course, as always, we need to deburr. There, that's all there is to it. I'll install the rest of this kit when I get my AHRS mounted. It's probably going to be back here somewhere, and I only have to run the static tubing that far. But its location is going to depend on where I tee the two lines together and then bring them forward, because I want to line up and just do as straight as run as possible. So I'll cover the rest of this kit later when we get into putting instruments in. It'll probably be about a year from now, if I'm lucky. Other than that, here's a picture of the static ports installed. I think they look nice. Don't worry about the giant circle with the no. That was just to remind myself to not dimple that hole in the skin, since I hadn't drilled it out in an earlier step. There, that finishes this section, and the tail cone is complete. This skin right here doesn't get put on until you connect the whole thing to the fuselage and you get the cabin cover on. My wings haven't shipped yet, even though they're paid for and the crate date was months ago. So in the meantime, so I don't fall too far behind, I'm going to start on the next section, which is assembling the horizontal stabilizer and the vertical stabilizer, the elevators and the rudder, and getting everything connected to the tail cone and starting to rig everything up. I'll probably spend some time cleaning off my workbenches and getting those prepped for the next steps, because I'll need all of the space to lay out the horizontal stabilizer for connecting the rudders. So I'm not going to bother videotaping me cleaning up my garage. And so the video will resume once we have that ready and are ready to take my horizontal stabilizer off the storage spot on the wall and start working on that. Other than that, stand by for some required pictures. Okay, so I have one of these set, and I just hand tighten down the jam nut. And what I'm doing with this scribe is I'm counting the number of threads that are sticking out, and that should give me a rough idea of where to set the other ones at, so that they're all identical. And so in a few steps I'll be installing these on the horizontal stabilizer, and I might need to make some adjustments to achieve the right fit. So even though it says to tighten the jam nuts in this step, I'm not going to tighten the jam nuts. These rod end bearings fit in the thread inserts tight enough that they're not just going to be spinning around on their own. Okay, so you need a 11/16" piece of wood for the next part. I just took a 2x6 and sliced it a piece off that was 11/16 thick. I figured that's all that I need for this, because it's going to sit right in here with the rear spar, under the rear spar. And it's going to go right here in this gap. So actually my piece is too big and I have to cut more off of it. Turns out I didn't measure this, and it's not a 2x6, it's a 2x8. On this, you'll probably need a bit driver extension so that your drill doesn't hit the spar and knock things out of position. Okay, so now that's mounted, you take a digital protractor or level, put the elevator in the trail position, so basically the counterweight section is lined up with the elevator. Hit 0 and make sure it can angle 25 degrees down freely, and up 30 degrees. Without contacting the skin of the horizontal stabilizer. Mine can do that and then some. Okay, so I was trying to get the gap along the back edge of the stabilizer and the elevator equal, and all I ended up doing was causing the curvature of the elevator to rub on the stabilizer, and then I started trying to screw the rod end bearings out to move that further away, and it didn't seem to solve the problem, and I was worried about thread engagement, so I went back and basically set them both at 7/8, went down at the end, made sure I had an 1/8 inch gap, made sure that it could go up 30 degrees and down 25 without rubbing, and going to call it good and move on. I don't think that gap running along the back edge of the stabilizer will ever be equal. Okay, what you see me creating off screen is something to hold my elevator in the trail position instead of duct tape. First time I used duct tape, it was okay, but this time I'm going to use 2 thin strips of wood with 2 holes in them each. And I saw another builder do this for storage of his wings with the ailerons installed. Basically you thread the bottom piece with the safety wire like so, stick the piece of wood underneath and the safety wire in the crack, and then thread the other piece of wood on top of that. And then tighten down. And that holds your control surface in place. And if I can find my safety wire pliers, you can get it quite a bit tighter than just pieces of duct tape. There. Now that control surface is held really securely in place. And to remove it, I just have to clip the safety wire. To reinstall it, I just have to add new safety wire. And that, I feel, provides a more secure mount than it just being taped in place. I'll provide a picture here so you can see what I did up close. And I feel like this is a better way of holding those control surfaces in place. And later, after I fit everything back here, I'm probably going to unbolt it and store it on the wall again so it saves space in my shop. And I'll have both that and the trim tab secured in that manner with this leaning up against the wall so it doesn't get damaged. And then later with my wings, I'll do the same thing on those control surfaces. And to give you a close-up of what I'm using, I just had some leftover door shims that I cut up into about 3-inch tabs and then drilled 3 30-second holes in each piece. One piece goes on the bottom, one piece goes on the top, safety wire connecting the two, and then twist it up tight. I'm going to go ahead and do my trim tabs as well. No reason to have those flocking around while I'm working on taking the elevators off after I get the control holes drilled and the bell cranks. And then for safety wire, I'm just using 32 thousandths so that there is some strength to it. And the grain runs this way, and the holes and the safety wire are going across the grain so it doesn't just split the piece of wood in half when you put pressure on the safety wire. And I feel like these could really be reusable if I just slide them off instead of cutting the safety wire. So I'm going to try that, to just slide them off, and then when I reinstall the elevators, I'll just slide them back on. Now with these in the trail position, I need to figure out which one is the most aft. And I'm going to have have to share a picture with you. With both elevators in the trail position, there will most likely be a mismatch in position between bottom end of the elevator horn and the bottom end of the right elevator horn. Identify which of the two elevator horns is most aft. And I'll have to grab a picture here and share it with you because mine are almost too close to tell the difference. And in this photo, it looks like it is more right one than the left one. That's just because of the angle that I'm taking the photo at. Let's see if I can get a better one, maybe for you guys. Using different straight edges, it does look like the right one is further aft by 1/16 of an inch. I mean, it is close enough that I can't hardly tell. But I'm going to treat the right one as if it's further aft. But I'm fairly impressed with how close I got those. Now I have to drill a hole in that one. So we'll go ahead and take off my stops to allow them to move, and basically I'm just putting the right one all the way up and the left one all the way down so that I can get into the space here for the elevator horn and measure and drill. And that 1/2 inch and that 3/8 inch are minimum distances. You can actually go a little bit outside of that. And to make it easier to get in here, I'm going to be drilling on the outboard side of the horn where the flange is bent up. That flange is about 3/32 of an inch, it looks like. So I'll just adjust my marks for that thickness. Now we just gotta center punch that and drill it. Slid back on, no problem. That is a fantastic idea. I wish I would have done that initially instead of using duct tape. It's so much easier. Once you get it set up, you just slide it off to move them, slide it back on to lock them in place into the trail position. On the next step, I measured it. Turns out that mine are exactly 3/4 of an inch apart. That makes it easy because that piece of wood that I'm going to create in the next step, step 9, can just be a piece of plywood, 3/4 inch plywood. So I love when stuff works out like that. I apologize in advance if your build isn't as easy as this one. So the block needs to be 3/4 of an inch to 1.25 inches wide and then about 3 inches long. I have some blocks of wood that would probably work great for this. Unfortunately, I don't know how well you can see on the camera. My screen here that I'm looking at while I'm filming this is small, but unfortunately this is a chunk of oak that I have. I don't think I have any. Yeah, here's another piece. It's a chunk of oak. I will say this one got wet and was sitting on the garage floor, so it's turned black. Maybe I should use that one. Fortunately, these look to be like exactly an inch thick. Normally lumber is like a 1/4 inch under the dimension or 1/2 inch under the dimension. In this case, they're just slightly over 3/4 of an inch thick. So my plywood is a better fit. Maybe I can find a piece of scrap plywood laying around that I'm not using. And really, I like the idea of using plywood more because it should be fairly flat. So when you go to stick it on the drill press and you drill down into it, there's a better chance of your hole ending up exactly perpendicular, even, well, as long as your drill press isn't off axis somewhere. But other wood around here, there might be a slight angle to it that I can't see or measure that would throw that off compared to the plywood. I feel like the plywood's going to be flatter. I just have to find a chunk of it that I'm not using. And I do have a lot of pieces laying under my workbench, but they were used as horizontal stabilizer cradles. I'm just afraid if I use one of those and chop it up, I would need it later. Oh well, hopefully I don't need all 4 of these anymore, or however many I built. Looks like 6. Even though I chopped this down, it should still be usable. I couldn't find any other pieces laying around. I have stuff stacked up there, but it's all 1/4 inch, which I could layer it up, but it just seems like I'd be more precise with just one solid chunk. Okay, so I don't own a drill press, and I want this to be very precise. It's my drill guide to make sure that my holes line up correctly. So I'm going over to his house to get some help, and then I'll come back and work on step 9. Okay guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this one here so that this video doesn't run too long. I had skipped ahead and placed the horizontal stabilizer here on the aft deck. I don't have the shims in place yet. I just needed to get it out of the way so I could have a clear workbench. I flipped it around so you guys could have a better view of it, other than me standing down at that end. So right now I just finished up the shims, so tomorrow I need to tape them to that and start drilling, attaching hardware. Actually, I'm probably going to work on it more tonight, and I'll just start a new video with the same day in the title so I can keep working on it. I just didn't want this video to run too long. As always, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Think about subscribing if you haven't. I have a lot of other stuff besides just building airplanes. So hopefully you find that interesting, those other videos interesting as well. As always, if you're thinking about building the vans, when you order your Empennage kit, please include my builder number. Vans will send me $100 as kind of a thank you. You don't have to do it. You can use somebody else's builder number, but it's just a good thing to kind of say thank you for that to that person for like helping you make your decision one way or the other. And it costs you nothing extra, just the cost of your kit will stay the same. And in the description, as always, I have a link to my builder's log. That's the most up to date. It'll show you where I'm actually at versus where the videos are at. And feel free to download that and use it for your own builds. Again, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.